We're going to be opening up the Wednesday, July 22nd, Littleton Board of Health meeting virtually on Zoom. Just have to read a few things about the Zoom meetings. So the town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to the Governor Baker's emergency suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns related to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. One concern is that the chat function allows a parallel text conversation to the board's public meeting. Chat is essentially a running commentary that is occurring but is not moderated or followed by the chair. All participants and listeners may not be aware of the comments being made because some meeting participants join by phone and do not see these conversations. Another concern is conversations between residents within the chat room, which are not incorporated into public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during the public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to the meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you call in by phone, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone so that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion. We ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises will not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether or not to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute and state their name and address. And after speaking, we request that participants return their microphone back to mute. So first on the agenda at 7 o'clock is a discussion of the emergency dispensing plan. And I think Scott, Garrett, and Alex are here to talk to us about that.
Jim Gareffi's going to lead.
Go ahead, guys.
Hey, so the Board of Health has had an emergency dispensing plan for a number of years, and the emphasis of the plan seems to be changing a little bit, possibly to adapt for additional concerns that may come up, to make the plan broader so that it can be used in different situations. When we first started, the first templates I remember dealt with the vaccine, and then they realized they couldn't produce a vaccine quick enough to make the template work. The one we had been working under dealt with administration of meds for an anthrax scenario. They've gone to this notion of an emerging infectious disease plan. And so the plan's been modified to kind of be an all hazards plan. So Garrett's going to talk a little bit about those changes, and then Alex probably can fill you in on the changes that we've worked on to try to make it adapt for that.
First, by way of introduction, my name is Garrett Simonson. I'm a regional public health emergency preparedness planner. I'm contracted by the Cambridge Health Alliance through funding provided by CDC and Massachusetts Department of Public Health. My role is to support 60 cities and towns, including Littleton, to develop and maintain public health emergency response plans. A significant focus of that planning is on emergency dispensing site plans for dispensing and administration of medical countermeasures, so medications or vaccines through those locally designated EDSs. A few months ago, Alex approached me and asked if I would be willing to assist with revising and significantly modernizing the EDS plan for Littleton. And what we set out to do was designed to be informed by 3 criteria. So the first, Jim has already mentioned, and that is to ensure that the plan is really all hazards in its approach. So the initial planning templates used in Massachusetts primarily focused on a bioterrorism scenario where aerosolized anthrax is released into the environment. We wanted to make sure that the plan addressed broader scenarios, including emerging infectious disease and the potential for a new vaccine to be manufactured to respond to that emerging infectious disease, which sounds pretty familiar to what we're dealing with right now. The second criteria was that we wanted to ensure that the plan better addressed the command structure that's utilized within an emerging an EDS, and to ensure that that structure is more in line with what our partner agencies, particularly police, fire, EMS, are used to using in an emergency event. And lastly, we wanted to ensure that the plan better operationalized the concepts so that it clearly spelled out tasks that are assigned to specific positions within the command structure. So the prior templates tended to be more theoretical and hypothetical in nature, and we wanted for the plans to articulate the roles and responsibilities in a more task format. So the outcome of that work has been that the Littleton EDS plan now includes 4 components. So there's the base plan, which addresses the key things that CDC and MDPH want to see in an EDS plan, and is what they would look to if they were to evaluate your plan. The other 3 components are task lists. So Alex will often refer to these as tear outs. So these are your grab documents that you would go to utilize if you needed to activate your designated site at the school, if you needed to mobilize staff, volunteers, and resources to set up the site and run it. And then lastly, if you needed to demobilize the operation once the dispensing is done. So demobilizing your staff, volunteers, and resources, and then deactivating the facility to return it to its original purpose. So I believe my understanding is that those documents have been provided to the board for review and feedback. You know, in my role, I'll continue to work with Alex and Jim and the chief to continue to make improvements to that. A secondary function of my role is to help support training and drills and exercises. And that's all something that we can do with Littleton and the Board of Health to demonstrate the effectiveness of the revised plan.
I think I wanted to follow up a little bit about that. This is a significant departure from the previous plan. While it meets all the requirements that we have to do, it takes into account the kind of resources that we can expect to come up with.
Excuse me, Alex?
Yes.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. There,
Is that any better? No. Hang on a second. Can you hear me better now?
a little bit. Go ahead.
I don't know what the problem is. So this was created with the idea that we can activate a site, be flexible with it, taking into account the limitations in resources that we have. And it's built modularly, and it's built to follow the ICS system, which is virtually universal in nature and the way that anybody that would be coming in from the outside would expect us to operate. I think it reflects pretty well what we're capable of, or what we'll be confronted with, and lines up our capabilities in accordance with it. We are the first ones to come out with this in this region. Garrett tells me that what we'll be dealing with is in other towns is going to be similar in nature. And the 3 big differences are the 3 operational task lists that we have. So the way we envision it is the need will be identified. Board of Health obviously is the key player here. The command center would be set up, and it would trickle its way down in a very organized manner in such a way that any one of us could fit into one of the roles and know exactly what our responsibilities are. And also provide us with the flexibility to flex to whatever kind of situation that we have to deal with. So the board was, I believe, given all of these, and I think where we need to get tonight is if you're on board with this, we can start taking it to the next phases, which are getting the sign-offs of all the other agencies that are going to be involved, police, DPW, schools, pretty much all the town agencies are going to be involved when this actually happens. So beyond that, perhaps the chief will talk about his section in it of actually trying to physically make it all work.
So as all of the components of the EDS come together, and like Alex said, it's really about trying to get this up and running, and to start it off, we'd be looking to do a drill at some point in the fall, just to basically do that dry run and make sure that all of the components work, that it's a very fluid type of a system where the members of the public could come in, be processed, and move through the EDS rather quickly. That's the goal, is to make sure that we can distribute the inoculations, however that may go, in a quick and safe and efficient manner. And while doing that, between now and then, continue to collect our PPE and, make a stockpile per se, to make sure that all of the members that are doing the EDS are safe. They have the proper gloves, face shields, masks, things of that nature that are going to, make it safe for them and make it safe for the public to come through. So really, these guys have done some great work at putting this all together. And, as a team, as we move into the fall, we're going to do the dry run, try to put it through its paces. And ultimately, the goal would be to be prepared for when they do come out with, the final version of inoculation to, distribute to the public. And see how that actually be prepared to administer that.
It's all been kind of a moving target, and that we really don't know what's coming, other than we know now today the president bought however many million doses of something that doesn't exist yet. But the whole flexibility of the plan and the way that we forged this partnership with Garrett, Jim, the chief, and myself, really is going to put us in the best position to handle whatever it looks like whenever it comes. But the key to us now is to start to educate all the other players in this, and to begin the process of planning a training exercise, so that if the timeline that is, we don't know exactly what it is, but people are all centering around the first of the year or somewhere around there. And as that timeline rolls out, we should be in a position to do whatever we're called upon to do. So I don't know if any of the board members have any questions, and I think we'd like to have your guidance on proceeding with this. In the document, there are sign-offs for each of the key players in all of the stakeholders. I don't know that we require that at this point, but we do sort of need to know if we're on track and if we should start the next phase of the planning, which will take several months to do.
So Is this, are we talking about the vaccine for the COVID, or are we talking about emergency preparedness for like an anthrax, or are we talking about anything, any possibility? Because I was just wondering, are we getting the vaccine from our primary cares when it's available? Or I guess we don't know what, there's a lot of unknowns, like you said, Alex.
Yeah. Garrett, you want to answer that?
So the idea behind the revisions to the plan would be to be better prepared for any agent or infectious disease that could be addressed through dispensing of medications or administration of vaccines. So it could be inclusive of anthrax scenario. It could be utilized for routine seasonal flu clinics. The case of a hepatitis A outbreak in a food handler, and you've got to set up an EDS for that purpose, or for COVID vaccination.
Okay, great.
I don't think there's anything in this that restricts us from working with a private partner. Should one of those hybrid models that we've seen with the testing sites develop, plan is flexible enough to deal with that and be in support of that as well.
Okay, does anybody have any questions, Kevin, Louise, or Mike, or comments?
I have a question. You said you were going to run a trial, or have a trial run in September. Is there a date for that set up, or?
That is the initial goal. In our discussion this morning about that, I'm not sure we'll be able to make that work. We wanted to, when we initially set that goal, we weren't sure what the target was on the other end for being ready. Now we're pretty sure that it's not going to be this fall. And so I think the way to think about our planning, the training exercise, is when we've got all the pieces together, and we can do it safely, we'll run an exercise. There may be some virtual exercises and training that has to occur beforehand, but the actual boots on the ground, if you will, this is how we're going to do it. I'm not so sure we can accomplish that by September.
This is Mike. I just have a question. So far, it appears that primarily in Massachusetts, the state has assumed a lot of responsibility for providing guidelines and thus driving a process that gets done at the local level. Is there any indication at all that the state is depending on local planning and follow through, as similar to the one that you're trying to do here? Are they depending on you to deliver the goods, as it were, when, for example, a vaccine becomes available and it's booster?
I think the closest model we have is the testing sites, and the testing sites are a combination of state and local resources put together to accomplish it. I think, and Garrett and Tim can chime in on this, I think in all reality, that's probably what we're going to face. Some sort of combination where assets, if you will, are put together from local and state levels, and maybe even federal levels, in order to get something accomplished.
So Mike, good, Garrett.
I would just say that I think that the current planning assumptions for COVID-19 vaccine would be fairly similar to the way that the H1N1 influenza pandemic played out, where responsibility for vaccine administration did fall primarily to local public health. A couple of things have changed fairly significantly since that time, with pharmacies taking on a much larger responsibility in routine vaccination services. And so they are part of that distribution channel now. And so we would we would assume that the COVID-19 vaccine would follow the distribution channel that seasonal flu vaccine follows, where it goes from manufacturer to registered immunization providers. Not knowing what the supply is going to be initially, they would probably look to target it to the highest risk populations if supply is limited.
Yeah, I was just thinking the difference, the fundamental distinction of this disease plus the others that are, I think, coming along that we haven't seen yet for real, and that is their highly infectious nature. So that you bring lots of people into an area and do inoculations. I marvel at the ability of the people around the country who line up in their cars and get tested. I'm trying to visualize that when you get people who are very concerned and get in line and want to be inoculated. So I'm just, I admire the effort that you're putting into this, really. It's not trivial.
And I would assume that there would be accompanying social distancing guidance and personal protective equipment guidance for flu clinics or COVID-19 vaccination clinics.
I think we owe it to everybody to, one, protect the public when this is done, but we also owe it to protect all the people that are there volunteering, trying to carry that mission out. So there will be a lot of work on how this is done safely and following whatever the current guidance is for this kind of thing.
So just to kind of piggyback on what Garrett said, we did the H1N1 clinics. The district set up clinics in the schools, and we ran people through, and it was very much like you mentioned. When the vaccine first came out, it was limited to who we could give it to, which made doing those clinics oh so much more fun. The added thing this time will be that requirements for PPE and for distancing, and we're starting to do the initial planning for our fall flu clinics. And so we've kind of reached out to all the school superintendents because we figure those are the biggest spaces that we could get to do these clinics. And we have done school clinics in the past, essentially since H1N1. So we are thinking about the social distancing. We are thinking about mask wearing. We are thinking about the layout for our fall flu clinics. So hopefully this will give us a kind of a practice, if you will, if and when we're tasked with another vaccine to administer.
Jim, have you thought about doing it outdoors, like the drive-up testing?
We have, and again, we have to try to think about how that will work. I mean, it looks great on TV, but as we were talking this morning, I'm trying to figure out how you do that, kind of managing the weather, how you do that, kind of managing people's flexibility and ability to get their arm out the window, the time, the distance, the long line. So, everything's kind of on the table, but I'm not convinced yet personally that the drive-ups are the way to go, just for efficiency's sake, but I'm certainly open to how this works.
This is Mike again. Do you still have, is there a record still around about the distribution of polio vaccine? Because that was a mass inoculation that went through a lot of the schools and other. It was interesting to see how that got organized. That was, of course, a different time.
You're dating yourself.
I'm sorry?
You're dating yourself.
No, I haven't seen any of that material, Mike.
Okay, it's the only scale we've seen on something that has the characteristics of this particular disease and the public response to it is something famously known as the Spanish flu, when I don't think there was much of anything they could do. And the next closest one for mass inoculation where large numbers of people, especially children, were involved was polio. But if other people, it's always helpful to look back and see what worked with large numbers of people. That's all I'm commenting on.
All right, Kevin, Gino, do you guys have any questions or comments?
I just wanted to say I think it's a great idea. Thank you guys for all your hard work. Let us know how we can support, whether it be financially, maybe putting something in the CARES Act in the 2021 budget. Just give us a list, and we're happy to. I'm happy to, and I think the board's happy to help however we can.
Gino, any questions or comments? You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for Alex and thanks for Jimmy. They gave us an update. We appreciate it. Seems like this is going to be for a long time. If they find that the cure, I don't know if the shot was going to help, but let's see what happens. It's going to last a long time.
Okay, so what do you guys want from us tonight?
Well, we talked about this, and I don't think we need a formal vote. I think I can sort of get the consensus from you that you're on board with what we're doing, and your encouragement for us to continue through the next steps is probably what we need at this point. And within that will be the distribution of the documents to more of the stakeholders, and the document does ask for signatures. So at some point, the board will have to decide whether to sign the document. In effect, you're pretty much the lead agency on this. We're just a facility. And so I think the board's on board. Aaron, you probably agree. If the board's on board, we're good to go to the next steps.
I think that sounds like we all are. I don't know. Do we need to take a motion? Louise, Janet, give me some advice. Do we need to just say, yep, go ahead, or
Straw poll.
roll call? What do you?
I think it was just an update. I don't think we need to
Okay. All right.
vote on anything.
I didn't know.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Janet, but
I'm actually not 100% sure.
Yeah, it's just a discussion. It's not a public hearing. So I would say it sounds like there's a majority of the board that is all for it. So carry
Anyone
on.
against?
Very well. Thank you. We'll give you updates as we go along. But,
Alex, you need to fix your voice, because Kevin also said he couldn't hear you too. Your microphone or whatever.
I had a Zoom meeting about an hour ago and it was fine, so I don't know what's going on. So we'll get the updates out to people and we'll keep you posted.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for your time.
So moving on, I know we're a little bit late. A public hearing about Massasoit Trail. Matt Stagel, is he on, Brian?
Yep, I just promoted him. He's got to just unmute himself, and then he'll be ready to go.
All set, Matt?
Oh, okay, great. Sorry, it's the first time I've had to use Zoom since all this started, so I wasn't sure if I...
Where have you been?
I guess I've been lucky.
Yes, lucky is how I describe it.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so Matt Stengel representing from Land Tech Consultants, representing the owner and applicant James Williamson. The lot itself is an existing non-conforming lot. It's undersized for the residential zoning district. It's only a 7,500 square foot lot. It's 75 feet wide, 100 feet deep. Despite that, it's still a buildable lot. There's good soils on the lot. We had testing out there with Jim last December. There were good soils. The groundwater itself was moderately shallow. But regardless, we designed on our plan, we designed the lot to try and minimize impacts, and we kept the building footprint as small as we were able to, while still providing for 3 bedrooms and a garage. We minimized the size of the septic system itself by designing a Presby system. Despite that, the system, due to the elevation of the groundwater, it's a slightly mounded system, and because the the grades on the lot drop off towards the southeastern corner. The design required a 4-foot retaining wall along the southern and eastern property lines. So we're just looking to for a variance for the retaining wall, the impervious barrier, and fill within 10 feet of the lot line. We did get comments back from Jim about a month ago, I believe. We did the revised plan that was submitted, addressed most of these comments. We pushed the system an extra half a foot off of the foundation to provide for a foundation drain. We provided the riser from the 2-compartment septic tank. The only thing that we didn't include was we didn't show drainage along the property lines, just as like a BMP for any additional runoff generated by the construction. We are willing to put that on the plan. It just didn't make it onto this revision. But besides that, if the board has any questions or comments.
So Matt, do you have, can you share your documents? I know this is your first Zoom meeting, but do you have those that you can share with us? Or Janet, do you have them?
I'm working off of my iPad. I'm not sure how I can, I don't have a camera on my computer. So I'm not sure how I can pull it up.
And Jim, do you have any comments while we're waiting to see if he can do that?
So the lot is really tight, and Matt, I guess I haven't seen the revised plans yet, so I'm not sure when they get submitted. So I haven't had a chance to review the revised plans.
Okay.
Some of my bigger concerns were, and they're related to this the 10-foot offset. The lot slopes a little bit in the back, and so the retaining walls in the back there, and again, some of my concerns were how you're going to address how you're going to show a reserve area in there. That again, because there's so much retaining wall, I wasn't quite sure how that was happening. And then just the way it's graded, it kind of grades to one side of the lot, and then you get the retaining wall. So now you've got potentially drainage going the other side of the wall. So again, I wasn't comfortable with the design as far as handling the potential for runoff onto other sites. And I guess those would be the comments. I haven't seen the revised plans, so.
Can I make a suggestion that not to delay things unnecessarily, but could we get the revised plan back to Jim, and then we can take it up at the next meeting? Because I think we're now alert, so we don't have to spend a lot of time the second time through, but we need to see what actually is going to happen and make sure that we have mechanism to follow through. This is a real tough one.
Did I hear no reserve?
No, there is a reserve, but what I'm wondering is how they're going to actually be able to install the reserve. You can show the block on the plan, but there's so much retaining wall. I was kind of curious how the reserve may be installed, if it had to be.
Yeah, 4-foot wall is crazy too.
Yeah, they're kind of standard in some of these small lots.
Does that have to go to ZBA?
I think if it's 4 or under, 4 seems to be that kind of pivot point.
Does anybody else have any comments? Maybe we should just continue this at another meeting until Jim gets a final, gets a look at the final plans.
Makes sense.
I make a motion to continue Massasoit Trail to the next meeting.
I'll second that.
So we'll do by roll call. Gino, you have to unmute. We'll go alphabetically. Kevin?
Kevin Baker, yes.
Gino?
Yeah, Gino, yes.
Louise?
Louise Nichols, yes.
Mike?
Mike Selden, yes.
And Lisa Flanagan, yes. So Matt, we'll continue this. If you can get that stuff to Jim, we'll put you on our next meeting.
Okay, yeah, I'll coordinate with getting that over to Jim.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
And gonna just veer off a little bit and get Scott's update so that he can get going. He's probably had a long day. Scott, are you ready?
Call you right back.
Who, us? Oh, somebody else.
How are we doing?
Good.
As far as everything going in town, we sorry, I stepped away briefly, but we do have a couple of new cases in town. Other than that, it's been pretty steady. We continue to show very positive things with Life Care. We haven't had any new cases there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, about 5-6 weeks now.
Yeah, it has been a while. Yep.
Yeah. So, very, very positive there. They're actually allowing residents to go outside and visit with family. So that's very encouraging. Let's hope it stays that way. And, but townwide, I would say that we still are in pretty good shape, even though there are a couple of new cases in town, for overall. We continue to work at replenishing our stock for PPE. It is definitely a concern, especially if a second wave were to come in, or, who knows what the fall is going to look like. But we're doing the best that we can to try to, replenish that stock and kind of get the town set up so that, town hall can reopen. On the fact of town hall, most of the employees are back in town hall. They will be opening, I believe. It's right now you can come in by appointment or meet with somebody outside by appointment. Within the next week or so, that will be published out a little bit more. We'll see how the phases go and see how the cases remain in town to when they may go to like a limited hour type of a schedule, maybe the 9 to 3 or noon to 3 or something like that. It's still in discussion as to what they're going to do exactly for town hall, opening up to the public. But for now, it is by appointment, and kind of still holding off on meeting spaces. We're going by the last guidance that came out from the governor's office for 8 people per 1,000 square feet. Town hall, as far as the meeting rooms, I know the Board of Selectmen have started some in-person meeting again. And so it's limited basically to the board and the town administrator. Jim, any heard of any other potential guidance changing on that?
No, there's no new news yet. Both a public health call and the district's call that I was on today, nothing new coming down the pike, best I could tell, which is almost reassuring because just trying to absorb all the other changes. As we had mentioned when I talked to you, Scott, the cases that we do have don't seem to be connected. So again, not surprising that as more things open up that we may see cases pop here and there. We're not seeing a whole lot of cases district-wide, so that's encouraging also. Seems to be following the trend that we're seeing statewide.
So that's really good to hear. And like I said, we're really just trying to establish a comfortable or prepared pattern of having equipment and trying to stay on top of things. Keep wearing your mask when you're out in public. Those positive things, they definitely help.
Scott, how are you going to prepare for that, the emergency dispensing plan with the PPEs and maintain your own supply for the fire department?
Good question. So right now there's a varying degree of supplies that we're getting between 95 masks, Tyvek suits, face shields, gloves, things like that. And we're trying to get some simple masks, different types of disinfectants and cleansers for town hall and the different offices, and trying to keep some of the the medical grade stuff in our stock. So just as it comes in, as it becomes available, we're trying to just put it away, and it's not coming in rapidly by any means. Obviously, the rest of the country is have the same needs. So some of the priority takes over. We did just receive one of the firefighters grants for COVID. So we received just over $10,000 in that grant, which will go towards the purchase of some of the PPE for us. And but it's going to be a slow process.
Okay.
And as we work through it, we'll just keep trying to put it away and be prepared for what comes down the road.
Okay. Any comments or questions from anybody on the board?
I just wanted to ask Scott, what do you need? What are you most in need of as far as PPE right now?
Right now, I would say between a varying degree of masks and gowns or Tyvek suits. Those seem to be key items that we're having a difficult time, getting in. We get dribs and drabs of them, the orders coming in, partial. It really depends on the providers and where things are going in the country. But gloves, we're in pretty good shape. Sorry?
Just the supply chain is just so slow right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions? Gino, Mike, Louise?
Thank you, no. Doing a good job. Be patient.
I also saw that the COVID command center, the MEMA update, what is it called? The updates, they're only going to come on Tuesdays and Thursdays now. So we'll get less mail from you.
All right, bonus. Yeah, I will keep, as they come out, I'll just keep passing those on to the group.
Great.
If anybody doesn't want them, just reply, let me know. And
Nope.
I'll take you off the list.
All right.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, Scott.
All right. Is Principal Harrington on yet?
He is promoting up right now.
Good evening. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come before the board tonight. Thank you, Brian. And thank you to Brian, Kirby, and so many others who have been part of our team over the last month preparing for graduation. I know this is especially meaningful to this class this year, given everything they've experienced over the last spring semester. And we're happy tonight to be able to come before you with a really solid plan that adheres to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education guidelines, as well as public health priorities and protocols. It's been reviewed by lots of people. I've discussed it with the fire chief this morning. I also sent it on to Jim last Friday. Appreciate you taking a look at that, Jim. Hopefully you had a chance to. I know you've been busy. Everybody's so very busy time for so many people. And just to give an overview of what our plan is, our graduation is just over a week away. It's scheduled for Alumni Field on Friday, July 31st at 5 p.m. Encouraging graduates and attendees to gather between roughly 4:15 to 4:30 to give us enough time to check people in and assemble in an orderly fashion, adhering to social or physical distancing guidelines. As masks, of course, are required, and we have limited attendance this year. And we're also unique this year, and first time ever, we're asking folks to pre-register, and we've sent out a link to the graduates. At this point, we have well over 80 graduates who have responded that they'll be in attendance, and their guests or family members. It's primarily limited to immediate family and people who were there over the period of the closure. The last few months, they've had active contact with, obviously to limit exposure and mitigate any risk to the public or anyone else attending. We have a plan for check-in. That's a new process for us. We usually just have people arrive, and it's a real communal public celebration each year, and I expect it to be similar this year. Obviously, a public celebration, but with obvious adjustments and safeguards that we absolutely have to adhere to. I also want to convey my appreciation to LCTV for their hard work over the last month in preparing Alumni Field to live stream the event. We're going to be able to live stream it across the world, obviously through the website, through the internet, for people, regardless of where they are, to be able to attend. And some people might be just right down the street, but just don't feel comfortable about going to an event that public with so many people in attendance. So despite the safeguards with the masks and the social distancing, but LCTV is going to enable us to live stream it. So that's fantastic. Attendance, again, is limited to staff members, graduates, and immediate family members only. And families have to sign up in advance of graduation. And only those who have pre-registered may attend. We are strongly urging that children under the age of 5, older adults, those with vulnerable health conditions, really should not attend this ceremony. There's a variety of requirements or guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and Department of Public Health that have been shared already with families, so they're well aware of what additional safeguards. Anyone who is exhibiting any sickness, symptoms, and it's all been outlined exactly what that would mean. Anyone who's been exposed to COVID-19 should not attend the graduation, really should not attend the graduation ceremony at all. Moving along, I'd just like to again remind everybody, face coverings, whether it's a mask, a gaiter, or different types of, people are improvising these days with different types of coverings are absolutely required. Parking is available as usual at the lots next to the middle school, Alumni Field, and Russell Street School. Now, the seating arrangements, there's a graphic that Brian and New England Stageworks have been instrumental in providing to us. And I don't know, Brian, if you want to project that for if you want me to, or here's a view of the way the arrangements. The bleachers will have appropriate mitigation strategies to limit contact with folks. We're going to cordon off certain rows that won't be accessible to make sure that there's distance between folks. So they won't be packed as they typically are at graduation. Entry to the graduation will be controlled with various check-in points. People will be ushered to their seats. The stage is in pink. You can see that is the legend that Brian provided. Graduates will be assembled in that sort of special yellow pattern that you can see on the paw of the field. And then we have faculty down closer to the parking lot if you're looking at the crowd to the left of the stage. And in the blue, we have the family members sitting in groups of 4, in some cases, groups of 2. We discussed this in our team meeting this morning. Again, we'll be meeting for over a month weekly about the preparations. So you can see folks that we have, parents. And they are going to be there's going to be a bit of distance, but they are. This is a live event, and it's a fairly strong replica of what we would do ordinarily, certainly in terms of the program. All the typical format that we would follow will ensue once we get underway. We'll start with a procession of graduates from behind the middle school. They'll proceed on to the field. After they're assembled with 6 feet apart, they'll have special areas to report to based on their last name. And then they'll process in according to pomp and circumstances, as is typical. We do expect, of course, to play the national anthem. There'll be some welcoming remarks from me and the superintendent, as well as the school committee chair, Mr. Fontanella. There'll be a guest speaker, and then there'll be a salutatorian address and a brief message announcing the class gift from the class president, the valedictory address from our valedictorian this year, and then a presentation of diplomas. Now, you're probably curious to know how will the diplomas be, handed off. We would hand them off. We're not handing them off. There'll be no shaking of hands. It's a different type of celebration, unfortunately, this year, where we're not able to show that kind of a special appreciation and recognition of students. But students will still be able, they'll have the, right now we're planning on having the diplomas on their chairs when they process in, and the chairs will be marked with their name on it. And they can process, when their name is called, they can process up to the stage and, take a professional photo and they'll be up high so that everybody can see them and professional photographer can take a photo. One thing we are looking at is potentially having we discussed this morning as a potential adjustment, is to have the diplomas on the stage. And this is all within the guidelines from DESE, is that the graduate would be able to receive the diploma on the stage. That's sort of nice. It's sort of a signifying. You go onto the stage, you pick up your diploma, you can showcase it, maybe lift your arms, and have a photo taken. And we think that might be a little bit more special. We're kind of leaning that way now with that slight adjustment. But it remains to be seen whether we'll do that. We'll decide over the next couple of days. And then after the diplomas, we typically end with a class song. And this year we will be having a recessional. There'll be different points. There's different exit points on the field. Thank you, Brian, for providing that. Brian made these adjustments this morning, and very grateful for that. And he even provided directions. So what I'd like to do is have an orderly recessional, not only for the graduates. The faculty will take the east exit. So people won't just, typically if you've been at a Littleton graduation, it's an amazing moment of joy and celebration at the end. We want to obviously keep that joy and celebration, but it'll be downplayed for sure. Typically everybody congregates on the field and there's music playing, and it's just a big crowd of people just enjoying company of each other. That's different. We missed that, and we're going to miss it this year, but we are going to, again, provide as much of a replica of what we typically would do. And with that said, we will have a recession for the graduates. They'll go out the north exit and 6 feet apart, and then reunite with their families near the middle school campus or in the parking lot. Parents and family members will be dismissed out the west exit. And I believe Brian has also identified the south exit as an option too. So you can see that all clearly laid out. The amount of planning involved in this, again, I'm grateful for. I think we're doing our best to make sure that people can feel comfortable as possible and have a safe and enjoyable evening together. That really is very similar. It's pretty much a graduation with just masks and a very orchestrated arrival and dismissal from the event, and obviously adhering to the appropriate social distance during the event. So I think that is about it for me at this point. To give you an overview, I think that's pretty thorough in terms of just the sequence of events and the amount of preparation that's gone into it. All these directions have been communicated to family members via email and to the graduates themselves. And I look forward to your feedback, welcome your questions, concerns, any recommendations you would have for us as we're just a week away. But we want to really have, I know this is a discussion and not a public hearing as it's noted on the agenda, but I really would like, I guess as principal and in representing the faculty of the high school and the team involved in planning, the validation and support of the Board of Health for this event, that our preparations have been sound and appropriate and in compliance with what you would expect of us.
Sounds like you guys have put a lot of work into this. I have a couple of questions. I'll just rattle them off so you can answer them. Pre-screening questions. How many grads? Is there a maximum capacity for the field?
Yeah. As an outdoor event,
and just real quick, that exit, the exits look like that might need a little bit of work, in my opinion. Just those kids haven't seen each other since March. There might be some hugging, hugging teachers. Yep. You may need to say, find your family, go out with them. I guess I don't know how that would work, but that might be something that you might want to be a little bit more specific on.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I was just going to say, Louise Nichols here, just to follow up on that exiting with the families, maybe you could call the student's last name and the parents and the student both get up and leave at the same time. So they're both sides of the group are leaving and kids can't hug each other on their way to meet their parents. They're all just going to leave it the same, the whole
That's a
little
good idea.
family group.
Yeah, that's really intriguing. That's a special moment, right? When you could exit with your family. It's a little slower, but it's more cautious. And I appreciate the suggestion.
Photo op.
The,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is the parents are going to want to get a picture of their children getting their diplomas, and they might run up to the stage and maybe not distance themselves from other people that might be
Yeah, we'll
milling
caution
around.
them not to approach the stage.
Yeah.
They could, and I'll remind them that the professional photographer will be available, posting them on a website for that candid from the photographer. And typically, just to reassure you, Lisa, that we have, when typically parents are in the bleachers at a graduation, and they're not on the field. They don't come, on the field to take a photo of their kid.
Oh, okay.
What's different is what they might get that sense they could approach because they're on the field this year. We usually have quite a distance between the parents, any guests, and the graduates. And so the professional photographer is there and LCTV. In fact, I will caution them because they'll impede the view of the television audience. That's another reason for them to not come forward. And a lot of what we'll do is we'll make we'll urge people to abide by certain rules. I know that once the event is over, and we talked about this as a team today, a lot of what might happen with family members and close friends who they haven't seen in a while, it's out of our control. We expect people, of course, I talked to the fire chief about this morning, to be responsible, to exercise common sense, to abide by what we've asked them to do. But we know as school officials, our authority is limited once the event's over.
This is Mike. You just landed on the spot that you have no jurisdiction over, no control, but in discussions with folks, our counterparts in other parts of the country where teenagers and about to be teenagers gather after events like this, parties suddenly pop up. And I was just wondering, are you as a public service impressing upon parents and the graduates basically to forego parties of that nature?
Yeah, I think we'll add that. I appreciate the comment, Mike. We'll add that to our messaging as well. It's not unusual for high school principals to send out a message to parents each year, regardless of COVID or pre-COVID, to send out a message about the social host laws, particularly the liability that parents and adults can incur hosting parties in their home where alcohol is served or other substances. It's something we worry about every graduation season as high school principals and prom season. It's a kind of a restless night, actually, each night.
Really?
Yeah, you do. It's like we get these kids. We know these kids from the, especially principals who've been around a while, like me. We've seen these kids grow up before our eyes, and we have, they're a special place in our heart, and we want everything to go smoothly. And so sometimes we have a little bit of trepidation about what might happen afterward or the preceding, weekend days. And we know it's common in the suburbs and other communities around us, and Littleton's no different, where there's been issues with social hosting parties. Adults know about it and they host it anyway and serve things. But I think what we're talking about now, and to your point, Mike, you're talking about, regardless of whether there's any substance or anything like that, you're talking about just having a bunch of friends over that might amount to 25 people. That's a modest graduation party, maybe in some Littleton homes, and where there's lots of place for people to gather on weekends for cookouts and things like that. We'll certainly urge people to not do that. But again, we'll send out the advisory. And I appreciate the comments. It's a good reminder for us to make sure we're communicating that message. Please keep in mind the restrictions around regulations and public health guidelines right now that we're all supposed to be adhering to and be responsible.
Anybody else have comments? Gino, Kevin?
You're muted, Gino.
You've got to unmute Gino. Kevin?
Okay, I'm okay now. The question is, as long as the parents understand they should have a good time, but there should be distance, there should be a family affair, and friends that can see them, let's say, another couple months. they have to be careful. Somebody gets sick, it's gonna go quick.
Yeah, and I think with we're going to have to take a good to Lisa's earlier point. I think it was Lisa's point about, and maybe Louise spoke about having them dismissed with or recessed with their family members. We want to limit the amount of. We were originally planning, just so you know, to have an orderly through the different exits, row by row. Ushers essentially would be appointed to positions of row by row to dismiss people. They'll be seated front to back and dismissed back to front. So there'll be, it'll be an orderly, if some church services like this, some auditorium events like this, to have using multiple exits and making sure that people are prompted to leave in an orderly fashion. Having the kids, have to go and it will delay it a little bit. I'm going to have to look and weigh if it makes sense to have them dismissed with their family. I'm intrigued by the idea and open to it. I just want to make sure what would be the most practical sense given the venue and having people have to pass by other families. We want it to be smooth as possible in terms of a departure. I just wanted to get back to that point. Thank you.
Evan, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very well thought out plan. A lot of work went into it. Great job. I'm just curious, did you consider, taking temperatures upon entry, or
yeah, it's
are
not
you set up for that?
Yeah, it's not required. I know it was done. I believe it was done at the town meeting. And I've noticed that I've been into some financial institutions, whether it's a credit union or a bank, where they're doing it upon entry really quickly. And there's others that are not doing it. The guidance on this has been really kind of open-ended. We felt that if we could move this ceremony along, as we have asked the speakers, including ones, I'll speak for myself, to be brief, be good, be gone, move this ceremony along. Typically a graduation, we're actually pretty efficient because of our size of our graduating class each year, that we have a ceremony that typically is 90 minutes or so. I'm aiming, if we can, to have this 50 minutes to an hour and move it along. So we're probably not going to take the temperatures. We want people to progress, keep their distance, use common sense, wear a mask, and go to their seat, get the ceremony underway, get your diploma, celebrate you, enjoy it, and wish everybody well in a real joyful way.
Yeah, and if you don't feel well, stay home.
Yeah, that's it. That's in the guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great.
No temperature check for us this year.
Any other comments? I don't know. Is there anybody from any participants or anything like that? Janet, anybody have raised hands?
I just had one other question, Lisa.
Sure, Kev. Yeah.
How many police officers will be on site, and how many staff members?
Typically, we'd have like 3 or 4. It might be 4 with the SRO, Detective Janakis. I'll check with actually, I'm planning to catch up with Chief Bernard tomorrow. If I'm not able to reach him tomorrow, I'll check in with him before the weekend. We typically have 3 to 4 details. And then the police department, of course, is a major public event in Littleton, one of the largest ones that we have in our small town. And typically the police officers who are on patrol will be helping with the traffic and the exits on Russell Street onto King Street as well. And now at this point, there'll be, traffic. We have to, the light there is at the point. So we should be okay with that end.
Do you have a gauge on number of staff members that'll be in attendance?
Yeah, we've asked the staff to RSVP, so that data, the number is still coming in. I project that we'll have, well over 40 staff of different different roles, faculty, administrators, educational assistants, related service providers. There'll be a variety of people who represent different parts of our educational staffing, but they're RSVPing. And of course, there's some that are reluctant to come for different reasons because of they're away or they have other responsibilities. Some just don't want to go to an event this large. But I've been really pleased, and I want to express my gratitude to the staff who are attending and have volunteered to help. We had one of our responses on our survey to the staff would you be willing to help? And a number of them are going to assist us with ushering, check-in process, organizing the seniors, and coordinating their entrance onto the field.
Louise, did you have a question?
No, I don't. It all
Okay.
sounds great to me.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. All right, go class of 2020.
And I appreciate you putting the extra effort so these kids can get an actual real live ceremony. My daughter's graduating from Parker and I can't wait for it.
Oh, good. Well, there's been a lot of good feedback. We were pretty good. We were pretty good about getting messages out about trying to solicit feedback from the community, parents, and the kids, and really listen to their voices. And it was pretty. It's impressive. They really wanted to be together as much as they could be, as much as possible. We weren't sure when we made this decision, months back, that we would be able to pull it off because we weren't sure what the public health situation would be. But I'm grateful that we are able to hold this event. Obviously, it'll be a brief graduation, but it'll be quite celebratory.
Yeah, awesome.
Right. All right. Thanks, John.
All right. Have a good night,
Fun.
everybody.
You too.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And sorry we're running a little bit late for the well regulations.
Yes. So,
Brian, is anybody else on?
I saw Ivan. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I
if,
saw Ivan. I'm not sure if there's anyone else.
I don't see Nick or Corey.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to take this, Louise, this discussion? Yep.
Sure. Excuse me. I'm not really sure how we can do it. I guess we just go through it go through it page by page, but I apologize, late in the day, I sent a draft regulations for everybody to see. So I hope you can have that open as we go through it. And everything that's highlighted in yellow is new things that I have cut and pasted into our existing regulations. So we can, mark up it any way we want because I just included a lot of stuff here. So on page 2, I guess it would be 226-2 is definitions. I added in a definition for an irrigation well. And it says a well used for sole purpose of watering or irrigation. The well shall not be connected at any time to a dwelling or a building unless it meets the requirements of a private drinking water well.
Where is this, Louise? I'm sorry, I'm scrolling down. What's
in chapter 226-2 definitions. And then you go to, it's below C, item C, which is an aquifer, and then below that is irrigation well.
I don't know if I got the marked up copy.
Oh, it was late. It was like
it's
6 o'clock.
It's not blue, but it's there. I see it.
It's yellow. It should be yellow.
No, I see it under aquifer and then irrigation well.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys, that I was so late. Let me see what time I sent it.
Oh yeah, 526.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says C aquifer and then irrigation well and then D person in definitions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gino, do you have a copy?
No, unfortunately, my copy must not. Besides, for one thing, before I forget, I was not able to print because there's no way you can print it unless you put it to Zoom.
Let me see if I can. I'm not sure how
It
to
came
share.
through. My copy came through with all the bells and whistles right from Janet's office, at least twice. So
You lucked out. You lucked out.
when you download it, it's prints just as a regular Word document.
I was hoping to print it so I can see it.
I'm going to try sharing my screen. I don't know how to do that. They were going to try and teach me, and then I had issues with my video. So
If you click the green button in the middle of your lower bar, it should say share screen.
can you see that? Oh, awesome.
Reach out.
Everybody see that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So this is just like the chapter page, whatever you call it. Page 1. That's all original. So these date back to 1989, if you see at the top there.
Yep.
No
Right
amendments
here.
at all, huh?
No what?
No amendments at all.
Yeah. Okay, so here is the definition of an irrigation well.
Yeah. Yeah. In yellow. It's nice. Yeah.
And because of in the irrigation well definition, it refers to a private drinking water well. So I added down on F, I added drinking water because it was just private well before.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's, and then these three definitions at the bottom here highlighted in yellow came from the water department's regulations. I'm not sure if, I don't know if I have everything in the right place, how we want it. I was just trying to make it where it sounded like it should go. We can move anything, change anything, just let me
Right.
know what you feeling. So the state of water supply emergency shall mean a state of water supply emergency declared by the Department of Environmental Protection. And then the state of water supply conservation shall mean a state of water supply conservation declared by Littleton Water Department pursuant to Section 4, which Section 4 will change because that's from their regs, not ours.
So these, I'm sorry, these are definitions, and just so we're clear, so putting in the three yellowed items goes further. It gives an example, correct?
I'm not sure if I have those three yellow items in the right place. I thought they would be definitions.
Okay,
Maybe I don't have them in the right place.
it's not a question of right or wrong. It's what your intent is. That's all.
I was intending as a definition. Yeah.
Okay, that's all. That's all you
Okay.
need. Got it. Thank you.
Sure. And then the third one is users of water consumers shall mean all public and private users of the town's public water system, irrespective of any person's responsibility for billing purposes for water usage at any particular facility. Okay, does anybody have any issues with any of that anything on that page?
It would be very good to have, real copy, and when we get together physically, that's really good information. But my thought is, if everybody, I know there is about 500 people with the well, they should get their well tested so they don't get sick. Sometime for different reasons, make sure the well is fine, and also make sure that not to use too much the well when the water is very low.
Hey, Gino, we're just talking about irrigation wells right now. The testing, the testing is about the PFAS. If you're thinking about that, that's just a whole other issue. So
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're just on definitions, really. There's
right.
All that stuff you mentioned, Gino, is pages ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So next page.
Yeah, I'm fine with the irrigation well definition. I was just thinking though that the use of water. What was the third one at the bottom of the page? Sorry, I'm just going off your screen.
Sorry. How about that?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, I don't know if I can get behind the private users.
Users of water consumers shall mean all public and private users of the town's public water system, irrespective of any person's responsibility for billing purposes for water uses at any particular facility. So what are you thinking, Kevin?
I'm thinking that the town water consumers shall mean all people that consume the public water supply that have accounts with the water department that pay for it.
Well, private wells actually use the public supply also. They just don't pay for it. Because we all,
yeah, well, and that could be Westford's water too.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's,
If you want to get into it,
we're
it's not
all,
really town one.
well, we're all taking.
No, we're talking about
same
the aquifers here. You
Right.
know, we all draw from aquifers, so.
Yeah, I just think it opens up a big can of worms.
How so?
You know, I just think it's opening the door for a lot of misinterpretation.
Well, this is just the definition.
I feel we should consult, town council on this.
Yes,
Yeah,
we are going to.
We are,
Maybe,
Kevin. Yeah.
actually, maybe we should talk about that first. Jim came up with a recommendation to send to town council, so let's talk about that. Oh, gosh, I guess I should find it to show it.
And maybe that should be our first step of discussion, is what we want town council to decide on. If it's even possible to separate public water from private.
All right, let me try and find that. Talk amongst yourselves.
Ivan, do you know anything about, you guys have talked a little bit more about this, you and Louise.
No.
Just our meeting, and then, we talked about, I thought the first step was that you're going to run by town council where the demarcations were. I think, Jim, what was that what we discussed?
Sure. So I think what I did was I put together something for Louise so she could discuss it with the board and pass it on to Tom regarding, concerns I had for the board about authority. So whether the board can, we received an opinion to the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards regarding the last time the drought came around, regarding the board's authorities to regulate private wells. But always with Massachusetts Association of Health Boards, I say, this is an illegal opinion. You ought to get your town council's opinion on it. So we'd like to get an opinion on what the board's authority is and how that might be applied, which is one of the concerns I had. And then how to go about approaching, kind of working with the water district to try to curb use during drought times with people with private wells, and whether boards could make, boards of health have authority to make reasonable rules and regulations to protect the public health, and whether this would fall within that and how it might. So this was the document that I had sent to Louise for consideration.
Okay, so I will read it for everybody, if you can just follow along. The Board of Health has been approached by the Water Department to coordinate efforts for the reduction/banning of outdoor watering, particularly during a drought. The Water Department has the ability to enforce their watering ban for their customers, but not for individuals who use private wells, which might account for 1 in 6 households in Littleton. The Board of Health has been presented with possible ways to address the use of private wells for outdoor watering, and because private wells aren't regulated except for installation/modification, the board would like legal advice on how this could be done. One option would involve the modification of our local well regulations to prohibit the installation of irrigation wells. The Board of Health experiences an increase in the number of irrigation well permits when outdoor watering bans are put in place. The regulations could provide exemptions for food production, but the goal would be to limit the installation of these wells. The second options would involve the board issuing an order to prohibit outdoor watering for those who use private wells. Attached is an opinion from the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards provided to boards of health regarding their authority for regulating private wells. As always, the MAHB instructs local boards to confer with their local council. As the Board of Health considers the above options, we would like your opinion on these options. Chapter 111, Section 31 allows boards of health to make reasonable health regulations. Would the prohibition of irrigation wells be considered reasonable? It would seem reasonable during a drought. What issues could the board face ordering private well owners to follow the Water Department outdoor plan? Would it be reasonable for the board to enact a regulation to prohibit outdoor watering during drought? Use the same trigger the Water Department uses to ban outdoor watering? Is there a better legal approach? The board would like to thank you in advance for your help. Okay.
So that sounds like, it sounds like probably the right steps to take, find out first before we start doing, I don't know, should we define what an irrigation well is, or is that kind of self-explanatory? And should we just ask whether or not this is even something that we could do before we start changing things?
This is Mike. I think that the basic issue occurs in the very first paragraph of the proposed letter. The real issue is that who has authority over the town's aquifers. And Ivan, maybe you've had, I think, the water department has a lot more experience in dealing with who has that authority. And I think that once council is able to determine who has authority over the aquifer, since everything is drawn from the aquifer, then it's a question of how you divide up the responsibility for whatever enforcement, for regulations. But to me, and maybe Ivan knows the answer, who has authority over the aquifers in the town?
Well, that's, I mean, we draw our water from the aquifers. Now, you know, I mean, this goes all the way up to the state, of course, right? Where the state can issue their orders, etc., regarding those areas of the state, the aquifers where there are issues. Certainly, you know, the way I see it is whatever regulation, you know, we have a regulation in place right now. Whatever regulation the Board of Health adopts, we should be able to reference both regulations so that our board, I mean, you know, our department points to your regulations where need be. Your regulations point to our regulations where need be, and we work together on the enforcement.
That's, yep. So we basically have, as it were, to use vernacular, chain of command that, and how we each how we work together to basically enforce and provide guidance for the use of the aquifer. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and whatever, you know, legal counsel opinion comes back, we're going to work with counsel, just like you're going to work with counsel, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Just one little side thing. Is there any hunch, even though this is below ground, I'm not sure what the mineral, if this falls under mineral rights or, you know, public utility, but I'm just wondering, is there any chance the quote select board is ultimately the agent for the town that, shall we say, oversees the aquifer in the end? Or is it still unknown territory, Ivan?
No.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, on the water side, it's different than the electric side. So yeah, I'm not sure. But to your point, Mike, this might have to ultimately go to town meeting for all approval.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah. I have no doubt about that. Thank you.
Jim, do you think it would be helpful to add in the definition of an irrigation well to this?
I think it is. I mean, it's part of the problem with well regulations. You really need to be careful about, if you look at regs, they talk about wells, they talk about private wells, they talk about irrigation. So, and the potable water supply well. So it's important that the language is correct, is similar and correct and appropriate as you go through the entire document. So, so that you can make sure you can do the enforcement properly. So, if you're trying to, prohibit irrigation wells, it's important to be able to define what it is. And that's, again, I think council review of this information and possibly how you might make that irrigation well the definition tight would be important as you're proceeding with this.
Okay. Any
So,
other comments for it?
Jim, you think that town council is the first step with this?
That would be my recommendation, at least get some of these questions answered.
Okay.
Louise or Lisa?
Yes?
Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment. I'm all behind, banning watering your lawn during a drought. Whether you're, attached to public water or private water, it's kind of like the right thing to do. But in regards to the, I think the irrigation well needs to be called out in that definition. And also I think, we should have a seat with the water department, whoever wrote these regs. And if we're going to be referencing them in our docs, I think we need to be comfortable with their regs first. So I'd like to propose, we table this, we all read through it, make notes and come back and have conversations sort of point by point. And maybe people will come up with some really good ideas.
Okay, so let's just start with this right here, this letter to council for tonight. And then if you look at the draft regulations, the items that are highlighted in yellow that have a really big font, those are from the water department.
And they were on that link that you sent through.
Yes,
Gino, right?
yes,
Yeah.
Exactly. I just took that and cut and pasted it throughout this document.
Yeah, I mean, I read through those. I don't know
Okay.
who wrote them. There's typos. They're missing words. They need work. They're up there, sure, but.
Yeah, and just, we all know, well, 1, 2, 4 of us know about changing regulations and how difficult they could be. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight, so.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah, so let's not rush it.
Just Lisa, just so you know, so that 11131 general law, that describes the board's ability to make reasonable regs. The regulations you tried to update the last time were septic system regulations, and then those are called out specifically in that general law. Probably back in the mid to early 80s, towns used to use, or at least were accused of using, their septic system regulations as de facto zoning. So the state legislature tightened up your ability to make regulations in that regard. And that's why you have to have those public notices. So for regular regulations, if you were going to just do well regulations, the standards, your ability to do it is a lot more quick. It doesn't require as much public input. But I think if you're changing something this drastic, having a public hearing to have it discussed would be really important.
Definitely. Yep. And some of us have been to one of those public hearings, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Those are fun.
All right. So, so we
Gear up because it's coming.
continue the discussion at our next meeting. And
so, Jim, you want me to add the definition of irrigation well to this document?
So you want to put it on there and just say, hey, do you think this is this is what we're trying to accomplish? Does this definition do it, kind of thing?
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be fine. Yeah.
All right.
This is Mike again. Ivan, is it worthwhile even opening up the question of the chain of authority over the aquifer in general? Because I can easily visualize someone who's in food production, shall we say, going right now. This is, as far as I'm concerned, is what looks like Swiss cheese to me for someone who wants to grow and use water for irrigation for water production, because there is a food production. So I'm just wondering, is it worthwhile to take, for the water department, whether we join or not, or welcome to join or not, to take a look at what the chain of authority is over the aquifer, where we get the water, whether it's well, drinking, or agriculture.
Yeah, so all I can say, Mike, is it's a complicated structure. You've got EPA, you've got DEP. There's a lot of different regulations, different, entities are responsible for different pieces. I mean, as an example, for instance, the landfill falls under your responsibility, but it's regulated by DEP. Same sort of, situation, we have to deal with EPA and DEP on our side with respect to the aquifer. So it is a complicated structure, but I think that getting council to first understand what is possible for the Board of Health to do and regulate, and where those demarcs are and the limitations, I think that's a good first step.
Okay.
Great. So Louise, you'll add that definition and talk to Janet about how we get that to town council?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. All right. Great. I think, any more questions or comments about that, the well regulations right now? Or can we move on?
We move on.
All right. Great. Thanks, Ivan.
Thank you, Ivan.
You're welcome.
All right. So next on the agenda, we have administrative matters, and we have 3 sets of minutes that we need to approve. And I hope everybody got a chance to review those so we can get through those tonight.
Yes.
Okay. So Louise, would you like to make some motions about these, or do I move them?
I move to approve the meeting minutes dated June 17th, June 23rd, and July 8th.
This is Mike. I'll second those motions, the motion to cover all 3 documents.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Alphabetically, Kevin Baker.
I need to abstain. I need to abstain from the 23rd, but the others, yes.
Okay, so June 17th, and well, that's okay, right?
Yeah,
Janet, he can abstain. Okay. Gino?
The 23rd, you mean?
Gino, the 3 on June 17th, June 23rd, and July 8th. Did you read them?
I think the July 8th, I was not able to read it, okay, because I had a problem. But nevertheless,
okay.
I approved it.
All right. Louise Nichols?
Yes on all 3.
Oh, and then Mike?
Mike, yes.
Lisa?
The motion contains all 3.
Yes.
Remember? Yep.
Yeah, and Lisa, I read all 3 in there. Yes. So we'll approve all those minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janet. And then any member comments? I have a couple.
I have a comment. And Janet, do you know about us moving back into meetings at Town Hall? Any word?
No, I have not heard yet whether there is a location for us at this point. I'm still waiting from town clerk.
Would it be easier if we changed to the 1st and 3rd weeks instead of the 2nd and 4th?
No.
Okay.
It's just in general. And I haven't heard that that we're starting meetings in anyway, so.
Well, I want to say I'm flexible for doing that if it becomes an issue, changing the weeks. But I can't do Tuesdays because we're just too busy in work. I can't take time off to go back to Tuesdays at 7. So, all right.
Can everybody else be flexible to any Wednesday, in case that's an option?
Yeah. Just when is going to be the next meeting on Wednesday? What date?
Well,
2 weeks from now.
Yep.
2 weeks or 1 week from now?
2 weeks. We haven't gotten to that yet, Gino.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
All right. Does anybody else has any comments?
I can be flexible as long as we're zooming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just give us the right numbers when are we going to use the same ID number and the same password?
It changes every single meeting, Gino. That's why I send new information every single meeting.
Thank you, but I did not receive it for some reason. Or if you did, was the 16 and
Yeah.
must bypass me. And Louise was kind enough to send me a new email.
Well,
Janet always sends it out like a week ahead of time, so you have to like save it or keep it new in your email or something.
Yeah.
I will try to save it. Okay.
Yep.
Keep it so it looks like you haven't read it yet, and then it's easy to find.
Yeah.
I'll write it down.
Okay. So I had a couple of, I probably should have mentioned it when Scott was on. I got a email from Lori Trahan's office regarding free COVID testing at some city sites. Lowell and Lawrence and Marlboro are closest to us. So I don't know if we want to see if we can add that to the COVID section on our website. Janet, is that something that we should talk to Joe about, or is it already? I didn't even notice.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Joe is still maintaining the COVID, all the COVID documentation. So we can send it right to him and he can update it.
Okay, that'd be great. The other thing too is on that COVID section, one of my neighbors texted me that there is specifically nothing that says that there's a section that says the ways that you can protect yourself, and mask wearing is not one, it's not mentioned at all. So I'm not sure if that's because it's a state mandate that it's not mentioned, that we're supposed to know that already, or if we can add that also. It was the COVID-19 Board of Health report, week ending 7/17. So
Okay.
mask wearing was not even mentioned.
I'll let Joe know.
Okay. And then the last thing was, did we ever find out what Mike's duties are?
Yes, he did.
Okay. That's the last thing on my list. Anybody else have any questions or comments, member comments?
I have another comment. Kevin, last week we had, what is it? Elections or nominations or whatever it is. And if you want to be vice chair, you can.
No, that's all right. Thank you, though. I appreciate the offer.
All right.
I did have a comment, though.
I think Kevin was after trying to be clerk because of the heavy load it carries.
Well, speaking of your load, Mike, I was going to propose that we potentially create a Google Drive that we can all share, and place the agendas in there, along with any plans or documents that pertain to that meeting. Gino in particular, I'm pretty sure Gino uses Google Drive, and it's great to just have everything in one place. I don't know about you guys, but
I think I'm sorry, Kevin. I don't find Google Drive to be particularly easy for folks who are not, shall we say, I think Janet's got a system that works very well. I think it's a question of administering your own email. I think we have enough stuff flowing. She's very, very prompt. The other possibility is for those who are having difficulty is that it could be your email server, like AOL is notorious for deciding for themselves what they consider to be spam. So anyone who's on AOL want to, and that would include
it's more of an organizational thing for the board members, I guess.
I would not be inclined to use Google Drive per se.
What do you use for file share? Dropbox?
Sorry?
What do you use for file share? Dropbox?
Oh, no, that's even worse. I mean, we can go into it.
Make a suggestion.
Maybe.
Yeah, is there anyone on our group who's having difficulty on a consistent basis getting the documents necessary for our meetings, other than not paying attention?
Yes. Yes.
You do, Kevin?
Not I.
Oh.
Talking about the big guy.
Yeah.
The big G man.
I mean, don't call him Mr. Board of Health for nothing.
Mr. Littleton.
It would help.
All right.
He's a young man, and he should learn new things.
Right. Okay. So we're going to keep it the way Janet does it right now. And do I have any other comments, or can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I'll do a roll call. Kevin,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Gino,
Gino, yes.
Louise,
Louise Nichols, yes.
and Mike,
Mike Selden, yes.
and Lisa Flanagan, yes. So it's unanimous.
We'll
Good
see you in
night.
2 weeks.
Yep. Oh, our next meeting, Janet, just double check. That will be.
It is the 12th of August.
Okay. So we're going to have how many sets of meeting minutes? Just one set of meeting minutes to review by then?
Yes, we should.
Okay. So everybody, that's my goal as chair. Let's get everybody on the same page, doing the minutes every day, every week. Okay. So they'll be ready for our meetings. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
job, Lisa.
Thanks.
Hey.
Good night.